Shedeur Sanders was officially named the number 2 quarterback for Cleveland in the game against Pittsburgh. The Athletic Jason Lloyd is reporting that the Browns might be hesitant to release Shedeur because of what happened with their former quarterback Baker Mayfield, who went on to shine after leaving Cleveland. I think it's a fear of more so than Deshaun Watson debacle, and it's totally debacle at this point. I think, it's just the fear of a guy could develop elsewhere, and then 3 years from now, we're having the exact same conversation we are with Baker. Well, if you, Ocho, if you can't develop them, why do you care? Ocho, I've never been mad of being in a situation where I couldn't give a young lady what she wanted, and she went on somewhere else and got married, or she found her a serious boyfriend. I couldn't give her what she wanted. What she wanted at the time, I couldn't give her to it. She went somewhere else and found it. How do I begrudge that?
The cameras flash. The mics are hot. And on this episode of Nightcap, the energy is off the charts. Shannon Sharpe leans forward, that trademark fire in his voice. Ocho Cinco shakes his head, laughing in disbelief. Because tonight, Cleveland's drama isn't about Deshaun Watson. It isn't even about the Steelers beating them 23-9. It's about fear. Fear that the Browns might once again let a young quarterback slip through their fingers and watch him shine somewhere else. Fear that Shedeur Sanders, Dion's son, the number 2 quarterback on Cleveland's roster, might become the next Baker Mayfield, the one who left Cleveland, then rose from the ashes in Tampa Bay. And UNC and Ocho? Oh, they lose it. If you can't develop him, why do you care where he goes? That's Shannon's line, and it hits like a heavyweight punch. Because deep down, he's right. Cleveland's problem isn't just losing games. It's losing faith. After that 9-23 embarrassment against the Steelers, the locker room felt cold, deflated, even confused. Deshaun Watson didn't look like the franchise savior they paid for. And behind him, standing quietly, was Shedeur Sanders, waiting, watching, holding that clipboard like it's the only weapon he's allowed to carry. But here's the twist. Reports from The Athletic say the Browns aren't ready to cut him loose. Not because they believe in him, but because they're scared. Scared that history might repeat itself. Shannon Sharpe compares it to love gone wrong. Like dating someone you couldn't give your all to, and then watching them find everything they wanted with someone else. You couldn't give her what she needed, he says, and now she's happy. So why be mad? It's not just football. It's personal. Because the Browns once said they wanted a grown-up quarterback. They didn't want Baker. They didn't want the fire. They didn't want the swagger. They wanted control. Now Baker's thriving in Tampa, leading, laughing, playing free, while Cleveland's still chasing stability and making excuses. So what happens when Shedeur Sanders, confident, composed, and dripping with potential, starts looking like that next guy? Be honest. If you were the Browns GM, would you keep Shedeur just to avoid being embarrassed again? Because that's what this feels like. Not football strategy, but ego management. And that's where Shannon hits the heart of it. He says, if you can't develop him, why do you care if someone else does? He's not wrong. If Cleveland isn't going to invest time, energy, and trust into Shedeur, why hold him hostage? Why make him the face of fear instead of the face of the future? The Browns owner reportedly didn't even want Shedeur, didn't believe in him, didn't see the vision. And yet, they're holding on, not because they see greatness, but because they don't want another PR disaster when he proves them wrong somewhere else. That's not player development. That's insecurity. Cleveland doesn't want another Baker story, but what if Shedeur's story is even bigger? And that's the storm brewing in Ohio tonight. Ocho Cinco jumps in, nodding hard. He says it straight. At that time, y'all didn't even want Baker. You said you wanted a grown-up. But now, the Browns front office is terrified of deja vu. They watched Baker light it up with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and that Tampa Bay chemistry. They saw how one man's trash became another team's treasure. Now they're thinking, what if Shedeur's the same thing? Because Shedeur's talent isn't up for debate. Even his critics admit it. His leadership, poise, and arm strength have turned heads at practice. But Cleveland's hesitation is killing his momentum. They're afraid to play him, afraid to trade him, afraid to admit that their franchise QB experiment might be crumbling faster than they expected. And UNC's not holding back. He says, if you're not even trying to develop him, let him go. Let him find someone who actually wants him. That's gospel. Because this isn't about football anymore. It's about the psychology of losing. Teams don't want to admit they were wrong. And the Browns? They've made it an art form.
Cleveland, if you can't develop a quarterback, why do you care if he goes somewhere else and somebody puts the time into him and develop him?
And actually wants him.
Yes.
At that time. Actually
Y'all
wants
didn't want Baker. Y'all didn't want Baker. You said you wanted a grown-up. Okay. He went to he had to go. He had to go a lot of detours.
Yeah.
But he eventually got to a place that let him be him. Y'all don't like Shedeur for whatever reason, and I don't know. I hope we get an opportunity to see Shedeur. Maybe if it's not here, somewhere else. But you guys wanted someone to be like this because you think this is the only way to play quarterback. No, that's not the only way to play quarterback. Now, I do think there are certain things you have to adhere to. You have to take the onus. When things go wrong offensively, you put all the blame on yourself as the quarterback. That's just the one thing that I do believe. But do you have to be like stoic and, you can be like Peyton Manning, you can be like Tom Brady, there are a million different ways to play the position. I just believe responsibility and ownership is one of the things that a quarterback must do.
And that's where the truth hits home. You don't fear someone leaving if you're confident in what you have. You only fear it when you're unsure, when the walls are shaking, when the locker room's divided, when the fans are whispering that maybe, just maybe, the wrong man is under center. Do you think Cleveland should start Shedeur after that 9-23 loss? Or is it too early to throw him into the fire? Because right now, the fans are divided. Some say give him time. Others say, what else do we have to lose? And maybe that's the most Cleveland question of all. Meanwhile, UNC keeps going. He breaks down the truth like only Shannon Sharpe can, with that raw, Southern preacher rhythm. You don't want to fire me, but you don't believe in me. You don't think I'm good enough, but you scared I'll succeed somewhere else. That's ego talking. That's pride over progress. And it's the same pride that cost them Baker. Cleveland's curse isn't bad luck, it's bad decisions. And tonight, that curse is staring them in the face again. Deshaun Watson looked broken in Pittsburgh. The offense scored only 9 points. Fans were booing. The media was ruthless. And yet, the Browns' biggest concern isn't fixing the offense. It's Shedeur Sanders becoming Baker 2.0 somewhere else. Let that sink in. Because if you're a real football fan, you know what that means. Fear runs deeper than logic. It's the same story every decade. A young quarterback full of promise. A franchise too scared to commit. And another city ready to let him become a star. Sound familiar? It should. It's Baker's story all over again. And maybe, just maybe, Shedeur Sanders is next in line. If Shedeur got traded tomorrow, which team do you think could turn him into a star? Tampa, Atlanta, or maybe the Raiders? Because you can bet one thing, somebody would take that chance. And if history's taught us anything, Cleveland would be watching from home, wondering how they let it happen again. You can't build a dynasty on fear. You build it on faith. And that's exactly what the Browns don't have right now. So as the smoke settles after that brutal 9-23 loss to Pittsburgh, one truth becomes clearer by the day. The Browns don't have a quarterback controversy. They have a confidence crisis. And it's spreading fast. Shannon Sharpe breaks it down like a man who's seen this movie before. He says, you only keep a guy you don't want when you're scared of what he'll become somewhere else. That's the definition of Cleveland right now. They're holding on to Shedeur Sanders like an ex who can't move on. And the irony? The more they hold him back, the more his legend grows. Because fans see it. Reporters see it. And now even NFL insiders are whispering, if Shedeur ever gets the chance, he's gonna make them regret it. That's the same sentence they once said about Baker Mayfield. And they were right. History doesn't repeat in Cleveland, it reloads. Every time they draft a promising young quarterback, the same cycle starts. They hype him up. They doubt him. Then they trade him or bench him and watch him flourish somewhere else. It happened with Baker. And it could happen again with Shedeur. But this time, it's even worse. Because Shedeur isn't just a kid with talent. He's the son of a man who built his name on proving doubters wrong. Deion Sanders doesn't raise backups. He raises believers. And Shedeur's not sitting there quietly out of fear. He's studying, learning, waiting for the moment he's unleashed. Ocho leans back on Nightcap, shaking his head. He laughs and says, "Cleveland, y'all not even trying to develop him. The owner didn't want him. The fans didn't ask for him. But you scared to let him go? That's wild." And it is. Because that's not strategy. That's insecurity. If the Browns truly believed in Deshaun Watson, they'd let Shedeur go without hesitation. You don't cling to your backup if you trust your starter. You don't fear what's behind you if you believe in what's ahead. So what does that tell us? If the Browns are so confident in Deshaun Watson, why are they terrified of Shedeur Sanders succeeding somewhere else? The answer's simple, because deep down, they're not sure they picked the right guy. And you can feel it in that locker room. The players see it. The coaches know it. That tension after every incomplete pass. That quiet side-eye whenever Shedeur throws darts in practice. The whispers are getting louder. And then Ocho brings up the perfect analogy. He says, "Man, I've dated women who moved on and found happiness. I wasn't ready at that time. So how can I be mad?" Same thing here. If Cleveland can't give Shedeur what he needs, why hold him back? It's poetic and painfully true. Because this isn't just about the Browns. This is about every team that refuses to admit when it's wrong. They'd rather keep losing with ego than win with honesty. You can't fix a broken system by protecting the people who broke it. And that's exactly what's happening. Cleveland's front office is protecting its pride. They made a massive investment in Deshaun Watson. The money, the headlines, the guarantees, and now they're trapped by their own commitment. Even if Shedeur lights it up in practice, even if he outplays the starter in scrimmages, they'll still find a reason to keep him benched. Because admitting he's ready means admitting they made a mistake. And nobody in Cleveland wants that smoke. Shannon and Ocho can see it from miles away. That's why they go off, not because they're hating, but because they're telling the truth. Shannon compares it to getting fired from a job, then hearing your old boss complain when you thrive somewhere else. "You didn't think I was good enough," he says, "so why you mad when I prove you wrong?" And it's the perfect metaphor for Shedeur's situation. If the Browns cut him and he ends up winning in another city, that's not their failure, that's their reflection. It shows what they could have had if they weren't so scared to let it shine. And that's the real problem. Cleveland's biggest opponent isn't the Steelers, or even their own quarterback struggles. It's their fear of being embarrassed again. They watched Baker walk out and win. Now they're paralyzed by déjà vu. Do you think Shedeur should demand a trade, or stay patient and prove his worth from the bench? Because let's be real, he's sitting behind a quarterback whose confidence looks cracked. Deshaun Watson hasn't looked like the guy from Houston in years. And every week Shedeur waits, the pressure builds. Every loss makes that bench feel smaller. Every camera shot of him on the sideline becomes a headline waiting to explode. And the fans? They're already whispering, "Put the kid in." Sometimes the scariest thing a franchise can face is a backup who's ready. And right now, Shedeur Sanders looks ready. Ocho even jokes, if Cleveland's scared, don't let him go somewhere perfect, like Tampa, or maybe even Atlanta, where they actually build around him. That's when Shannon laughs and says, "Yeah, and then Cleveland gonna be sitting at home again, talking about what could have been." Because they know Tampa was perfect for Baker. He had weapons, a system, and a city that believed in him. If Shedeur found that same kind of situation, man, it'd be game over. Imagine Shedeur in a system that lets him throw freely, use his legs, build chemistry with receivers who actually want to grow with him. That's how you create a star. Not by benching him. Not by hiding him behind a fading narrative. By trusting him. You don't build greatness by playing scared. But scared is exactly how Cleveland looks right now. Even Ocho admits, man, that 9-23 loss wasn't just a defeat. It was exposure. It showed who they really are. A team lost between two eras. One built on hype, the other waiting quietly for its chance. And Shedeur represents that next era. that next chance, that next spark of hope. But if the Browns don't get out of their own way, they'll never see it. And as UNC and Ocho start wrapping up, the topic shifts to A.J. Brown trade rumors. A reminder that this league moves fast, that players who seem untouchable can be gone in weeks. Shannon points out how Philly might move on from A.J. Brown before the deadline. That's bold. That's business. Meanwhile, Cleveland's scared to even make a decision. Every other team's making moves. The Eagles are exploring trades. The Dolphins are retooling. But the Browns? They're stuck, overthinking, overpaying, and underperforming. That's not how you win in today's NFL. That's how you drown. You can't rewrite the past, but you can stop reliving it. So maybe it's time Cleveland learned from their mistakes. Maybe it's time to stop fearing another Baker story and start writing a Shedeur story instead. Because what if, just what if, the kid is the real deal? What if that poise, that patience, that fire we've seen since Colorado isn't just college hype, but a glimpse of what's next? Wouldn't it be poetic justice if the son of Deion Sanders became the man who saved the same city that once doubted him? That's not just football. That's legacy. And that's why UNC and Ocho's rant isn't just noise, it's a warning. If the Browns don't wake up, they'll lose again. Not just on the scoreboard, but in the storybooks. Because somewhere out there, Shedeur Sanders is ready. Ready to prove that he's not Baker 2.0. He's something bigger. Something the Browns never saw coming. And that's the story tonight on Gridiron Insights, where the headlines hit harder than the tackles. So what do you think, football fans? Is Cleveland right to fear another Baker situation? Or are they just too scared to admit Shedeur might actually be the future? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like, smash that subscribe, and stay locked in with us here on Gridiron Insights, where the truth never takes a timeout.